What's up, y'all? I'm not sure if you heard recently, but there's been a few interesting finds, we'll call it. A severed leg in a trash can, a barrel with a whole body in it, in the back of a Dollar General that was there for at least 9 days before it was found, with nobody knowing who put it there. And of course, Florida doing its thing. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the reigning weird headline champion of the world, with that 13-foot alligator being found having somebody's lower body in its mouth, which is sad and hilarious. Those sound like some serious business moves, which got me thinking, what would have to happen for bodies to only be found because someone is just closing up shop and taking out the garbage? I said to myself, that's some real serial killer vibes. Wait, nah. Yeah? Nah, that'll be crazy. There can't be any active ones anymore, right? You can't get any more 70s than that. Which brings us to this video because I had to look it up. And when I say serial killers, I don't mean King Von. He was just a soldier in the war. I see how some could confuse the type of killers, but soldiers and killers for the most part are not the same. Not necessarily, at least. According to the FBI, a serial killer is a person who commits a series of murders, often with no apparent motive and typically following a characteristic, predictable behavior pattern. Whether it's how they do it, or who they choose to do it to, or how they choose to cover up behind themselves. Soldiers only kill their opposition, or in some cases, innocent bystanders. But that's not usually on purpose, more so collateral damage. Police say at any one time, there are between 35 and 60 serial killers on the loose in the United States. We're not talking about any other country, just here in the US. And man, did I find a lot of them. I could honestly make this video with different situations every week. I say situations because it's not like we've narrowed down who's responsible for these instances, but what's suspected. So let's break down 4 currently active serial killers in the United States. We'll save the rest of the world for different videos. And stay tuned for number 1 because that's the most interesting case so far. In February 2009, a woman out for a walk with her dog discovered what she believed to be human bones in Mesa near Albuquerque, New Mexico, which just sounds like the beginning of Law & Order. Police soon investigated, and to their shock, they subsequently found the remains of 11 women in total along the same stretch of land. The women ranged between ages 15 and 32 and were all involved in the sex trade. Most were of Hispanic descent, and one of the women was pregnant at the time of her murder. While the case remains unsolved, police do have 2 major suspects. However, one of them is in prison on an unrelated charge and the other is dead. Lorenzo Montoya lived in a trailer a few miles from where the victims were found, but was killed in 2006 by a sex worker and probably his next victim. Joseph Blee was a known in the area, and when police invaded his home, they found a stash of women's jewelry and underwear. Which is crazy because I can't believe that term even exists, known in that area. What do you mean? And he's just in the area? That's ridiculous. But unfortunately, police haven't been able to confirm a definite link between either suspect and the West Mesa bodies. The case is still open today. The I-70 killer haunts the memories of the Midwest with a chilling murder spree that took place in the spring of 1992. The nickname stems from the proximity of the stores where his victims worked, situated just a few miles off Interstate 70. The killer's modus operandi involved targeting young, petite brunette women working alone in specialty stores. In one instance, a male victim was mistakenly chosen due to the store's female name and his long ponytail, which the killer may have mistaken for women's hair. The sinister spree began on April 8, 1992 with the cold-blooded murder of 26-year-old Robin Folger in Indianapolis. It continued with the brutal killings of Patricia Smith and Patricia Majors in Wichita, Michael McCown in Terre Haute, Nancy Kitzmiller in St. Charles, and finally Sarah Blessing in Raytown. The killer struck swiftly and precisely, usually during slow times of the day when the stores were deserted. Each victim was shot in the back of the head with a .22 caliber firearm, and though the stores were robbed, it appeared to be a secondary motive. Investigators believe the same killer may be responsible for 2 additional murders and an attempted murder in Texas during 1993 and 1994, as well as the 2001 murder of a store clerk in Terre Haute, Indiana. Despite receiving widespread attention from shows like Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and Dark Minds, the I-70 killer remains unidentified and no suspect has been publicly named. Witness descriptions have led investigators to create composite sketches of the killer, describing him as a slender white man with reddish hair, lazy eyelids, and armed with a firearm that could be an Intratec Scorpion pistol or an Irmawork ET-22 pistol. Age-processed versions of the sketch have been released in an attempt to spark recognition and bring the chilling case to a close. As the tale of the I-70 killer lingers over the Midwest, the case remains open, a grim reminder of the brutal murders that once plagued the region, casting a cold, ominous shadow over the communities that will never forget their lives lost. Between 2005 and 2009, the bodies of 8 women between the ages of 17 and 30 were found dumped in the swamps of Jefferson Davis Parish near Jennings, Louisiana. Interestingly, several of them knew each other, one pair of victims even being cousins. Crazy enough, all of the victims acted as police informants. Some of them actually reported on other Jeff Davis victims before their own murders. The investigation into the murders never identified a legitimate suspect, but it led to wild allegations of misconduct amongst Louisiana police. Muddying the case further, an investigative reporter later stated the person or people responsible for these killings were most likely part of law enforcement. Given each victim's history, this isn't too implausible. The fact that the perpetrator or perpetrators could be investigating their own crimes makes the Jeff Davis 8 a particularly disturbing case. Today, the case is known as a possible example of police corruption. In October 2019, interest in the case was renewed as a result of Showtime's new documentary on it. This person was on his job with at least 10 victims between 1996 and 2010, possibly more we haven't yet discovered. But they've been called the Craigslist Ripper. It was only after authorities accidentally stumbled upon human remains while searching for missing sex worker Shannon Gilbert that they realized Gilgo Beach might be a dumping area for a serial killer. After initially uncovering 4 bodies, police widened their search and discovered another 6. 8 of them were women, all escorts who used Craigslist to advertise their services. One body was that of a toddler, later discovered to be the daughter of one of the victims. Another body was that of a cross-dressing male, which added mystery to the killer's motive, but it really just seems like he was someone who went on the call when the Craigslist Ripper was fishing for something else. Several suspects were soon identified, but none of them with any conclusive ties to the 10 victims found. Now, the interesting part of this case that I promised you in the beginning of this video was that while recording this video, there was an update when the DNA of a 60-year-old Manhattan architect, Rex Uriman, from a pizza crust that he tossed out earlier this year in Manhattan, matched on a hair found in the burlap used to wrap one of the victims. Police say the DNA swab from his cheek is consistent with the DNA on the pizza and the hair. Uriman's lawyer, however, says DNA can be transferred and doesn't accurately pin his client to these crimes. He's being accused of at least 3 of those murders, victims who disappeared between July 2009 and August 2010. He's pleaded not guilty. Who would have thought there would be an update as soon as I decided to sit down and make this video? The crazy part is that he was already on this list. I just had to make him number 1 instead of number 3. Now, we can't say he's guilty just yet, but put a 20 in the chat if I should make this a weekly series. Peace.